So our next speaker is Amparo Domingo. She is the country contact for WDI for Spain, and she's going to give us an update on what's happening in Spain. So thank you so much, Amparo, and over to you.
I'm going to let you know how things are here in Spain, which, not surprisingly, are not very good. But we have a strong moral, so we keep on fighting back current situation. I have divided my presentation into bits, 2 sections. I thought it was easier that way, and I'm dividing the slides in woke politics and the consequences, and later on, what are we doing to fight them? And in the sections, I'm just organizing it chronologically. You have the date at the top of the slides to help you know when things happened, because it has been packed with many things. So in the end, it was I thought it was easier this way. So since last time when I came, it was January. We were still fighting what was then the bill, but then sadly, it's now law. We have a law with self-ID in Spain. It was published at the official bulletin on March 1st, 2023, as you can see. So now it is official. It's a heavy text, because it not only has self-ID, it also has a ban on conversion therapy, and that is a part of the interdiction of anything else that is not affirmative approach to the gender identities theory or belief as it is. You can only affirm, otherwise you're going to suffer the consequences, which is the third axis of this bill, of now law, sorry, which are fines up to 150,000 euros for dissenting. And even though self-ID is supposed to be based on the concept of depathologization, which we all know it's false. There's this section in the law that says, I have translated it for you at the bottom of the slide, that the Ministry of Health will ensure the sufficient supply of medicines used in hormonal treatments for trans persons, and will supervise their supply in order to avoid recurrent episodes of stockouts. So I didn't coordinate with Amy Sousa for her brilliant presentation before, but here we can see the long hand of the pharma lobby in the writing of this Spanish bill. This is something that happened in Spanish television a month after the last vote and 2 weeks after being published, the law. This man, as you can see, with the beard, everything, he appeared like that on a Spanish television program. And he's one of the applicants for the legal change in his sex. After the passing of the law, he hasn't required his name to be changed. His name is Roma Gallardo. That was his name before. Of course, he's a man, but he has sort of, I don't know, he earns a living. I don't know at what level, but he's a sort of famous YouTuber in Spain, a very chauvinistic guy. He's a member of the manosphere in Spain. And because he's one of the men that think that men are discriminated against in Spain because of the equalities legislation, he took the opportunity to file for a legal change in his legal sex. And at the time of the video, at the time of the appearance at the TV program, he just had the application. That was 4 months ago. So maybe he will have now his application granted. I haven't heard anything definite from him or any other in that sense, but it won't take very much because of the wording of the bill. It was maximum for 4 months. We don't know the exact figures about how many men are doing the exact same thing as this man was doing. Some journalists every now and then write articles asking maybe a registry in Burgos, another one in Cordoba. So we have scattered information, but all of them usually say that they have had many applications. Some articles, the headline says landslide of applications, or maybe that registries are collapsed because of so many work they have because of this. And usually they say that many of the applications that they get from men, they do not demand to have their names changed. So the only thing they're looking after are, of course, the legal change in their sex they are, in order probably to avoid the Spanish legislation against male violence against women, and which is their main concern. It is still too soon to know the real consequences in terms of figures or amounts of strange things that could be happening. We don't know. The situation is not clear. We don't have a clear picture. And we had a very weird thing happening in Spain that we have. You might notice that we have had a very interesting year, because there was this change in our criminal code, and bestiality or zoophilia has been partially decriminalized. This was something that we knew due to social media. People were copy-pasting this proposal that ended up in the final text, which is now legal in Spain. You see the top date, March 29th was the day this thing was published at the official Gazette. So this is it. Now, zoophiliac perverts will only be punished if they provoke injuries to the poor animal, and they have to take the animal to the vet for a treatment. Otherwise, it's not a crime in Spain. This made rounds in social media, as I said. The Post-Millennial, which is an outlet in Canada, here, they wrote about it. They were flabbergasted, to say the least. And I found out later on some information that this could be based on a very weird idea of consent that goes around the zoophiliac community. So because of that, it might be the case that actual perverts were writing the draft for this bill, which was supposed to be for animal welfare, not for this. And also you have in red at the left side of the slide that are the General Council of the Judiciary. When they were reviewing the draft, they said that this bill was infringing the principle of proportionality, because the penalties that it has for certain animal abuse are higher and tougher than some of the provisions that are in other legislation for violence against women. You heard that right. There are some provisions in Spanish law that are tougher for if you abuse an animal, that is if you abuse a woman, here in Spain 2023. So that's, by the way, that's grounds for inconstitutionality, because of course our legislation should follow the principle, general principles of the rule of law. So this is the beginning of the presentation. There's more, not as shocking, but so here we arrived into May. that was March. We are arriving to May, where we had a call for elections, for local and regional elections. And I saw this video, which is very, very short, and I want you to see it as well, because I'm a bad person and I want you to suffer. I think you're watching my, sorry, you're watching my, so this. This is a man, by the way. It's the minister. I'm sorry. Okay. So this was so odd that I thought it was fake. It was a fake thing. So I looked for more information, and then I found that at the official Twitter account, they had very similar images. This figure that stands up to clap, this thing, this is our Spanish Minister for Equality's incumbent, very soon to finish her term, but this is her. So this is for real. This was happening in Spain during the elections for local and regional elections that happened in May. The elections were May 28th, and this was an official act or event in Madrid when they were asking for the vote for the party. And what happened? Luckily, we seem to have gotten some sense because they failed massively. This was the good thing that came out of those elections, a miracle. They were wiped out. They are now politically dead. And these are three different headlines from different outlets. And you can see the wording. Podemos becomes irrelevant. They say here, electoral collapse for Podemos here. Podemos sank in the regions, but all of them use the word disappears. It disappears. So now has disappeared from the political landscape in terms of any importance it could have, because really people could not stand the sight of them. This had really unforeseeable consequences because the next day, this is doing okay. Next day after the elections, Prime Minister, very surprisingly, he called for a snap election because we were having the scheduled elections were next December. So we thought we were having like a sort of quiet and calm summer where we could have some rest after having been battling against self-ID for 3 years. But then we found out that the morning after, because they had got such a big slap in their face that he called for an early election that happened last week. As you see here, the dates were July 23rd. So Politico wrote about it and said disastrous local polls for the left. Both the Socialist Party were in a very bad shape, but as you saw, Podemos got wiped out. So that happened May. And then we jumped to July 1st. And this happened, this was scheduled. This is the presidency of the Council of the European Union, that it has a rota system, and everyone of the 27 countries gets to be president for 6 months. And we are now in that term from July 1st to next December 31st. And now I'm going to say a personal note, a personal comment. This is not Women's Declaration International comments, so in case there was some liability, it is completely, it's mine, personal, Amparo Domingo. I think this is the reason we have trans law in Spain, meaning that our president was adamant to reach the presidency. He didn't want to call for an early election before. He was resisting calls from right and left to call a snap election because there have been several disasters from his cabinet, but he wouldn't, absolutely wouldn't. And only the disastrous results in the election forced him to do that, considering that now they are sort of, we call it infunctions. It's not, they haven't quit the job, but they don't have full powers. But as I said, this is the reason, because he could have called the elections maybe last year, according to when the only yes means yes disaster was growing. According to Spanish law, when an election is called, a snap election is called, then everything, the parliament dissolves, and everything that is not up to the point of being actually law, published at the official gazette, everything decays. So had he called for an earlier election last year, for instance, or maybe in February, we wouldn't have trans law now being legal in Spain. So this has been the reason he really stood by Podemos, because I think, as I said, this is my personal opinion, I think he wants to launch his international career based on this semester. He wants to further his international agenda of contacts. I think he wants to be, I don't know, General Secretary of the UN after several years. So this is the reason why. And I'm focusing on this because it also has an effect on something I'm going to tell you later. And that happened, and at the same time that we were beginning the presidency of the council, we were also beginning the new election campaign, which we had already in May for the regional elections, and now we had it for the general elections, and we're really sick of the politicians at this point. And because the woke party was dead, there's a new woke party. This is the version 2.0 of the new woke party. It's called Sumar, and they claim to be better and finer and more civilized and everything, and more elegant and sophisticated, but they are the same. They're the same. It's just like a higher, refined version of the previous one. And Yolanda Díaz is the leader of this coalition. So she chose as a spokesperson for feminism a 22-year-old man who says that he's a woman. He has been on hormones since he was 14 years old, and he claims to be a lesbian. We didn't know that. I thought he was gay because he had been transitioned since a very, very early age. So as you see, the department, they say a spokesperson, portavoz means spokesperson of feminism, equality, and rights, and LGBTI plus rights and freedoms. So for them, feminism is everything related to gay men or men that say they're women, but not women, not actual women. So this is not a good look on the Spanish landscape. And I mentioned briefly the disaster that was what is called Only Yes Means Yes. The change they made on convictions for rapists and sexual abusers, molesters, even pedophiles, that up to this point, the last tally we have is that 1,155 rapists have had their penalties, their convictions reduced, and even 117 were released from prison earlier in application of the new periods of time. That has been amended, but because of Spanish law, the amendment only takes place after the publication. So everyone that was convicted up to that point in Spain has the right to apply for a reduction. This is really a horrible disaster. And Irene Montero, even though she already knew no one wanted her, she's not a part of the new woke coalition. She knows she has weeks, maybe a couple of months in power. When, as I said, when a new election is called, the politicians have reduced powers. But even though she opened hard, with a bang, the Spanish presidency for the council and had an event in Madrid 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, where 16 countries, 15 plus Spain, signed a declaration on ministers responsible for LGBTIQ policies. And it was for advancing LGBTIQ rights in Europe, and they promote self-ID. They want self-ID to be the standard in the EU when the next policies in the EU are designed. We have now a document that it will last from 2020 to 2025. It's Union for Equality, or Union of Equality, it's called. So when that expires and the new text has to be drafted, they want self-ID to be the standard in Spain. And this blonde woman is the leader of Sumar. This is Irene Montero, the current minister for equality. And this is a picture I showed you last time I was here, because this was an event in September. This both are men who say that they are women. And I said that she doesn't have pictures like this with feminist women. And she was so happy to be there with trans activists. And now the picture has changed. The men are the same, but the woman, the politician, changes. This is Yolanda Díaz, the leader of Sumar, and she has taken under her wings all trans activists that used to support Irene Montero and who no longer support her because she's become very toxic. But now they are all, this is the probably the precocious AGP. As I said, he identifies as a lesbian, being a man. And this is now a senator in our Senate. And these two were candidates for the Senate, but luckily they were not elected. And those four are men. She's the only woman. It's her, the leader of the coalition. And the big surprise in the election, the question was asked, what is a woman? And I want to play it for you because it's just a minute. There are subtitles. I can do that. Subtitles are off. No, sorry. Subtitles, now I can self-translate into English. So you can. It's not a very good translation, but at least you get the idea. And this man asking the question, this is the leader of the far-right party, very far-right. We don't joke about these things in Spain. We know where someone is a fascist or not, that they are. And this is Yolanda Díaz, the leader of the woke party, minority. And this is Pedro Sánchez, current incumbent prime minister. And here I hope you can hear the voices.
¿Qué es una mujer para ustedes? Yo lo tengo claro, pero ¿qué es una mujer para ustedes?
¿Qué es una mujer, señora Abascal, para usted?
Lo estoy preguntando yo.
No, le pregunto yo a usted, ¿qué es una mujer para usted?
Pues aquí se ha quedado en tablas, no lo van a contestar, pero si ustedes piensan que un hombre que se autopercibe de género femenino es una mujer, ustedes están muy equivocados y ponen en riesgo a las mujeres. Mire, acaba de salir la noticia hace un momento de que hay un violador y un asesino en la cárcel que se llamaba Jonathan, en España, y que quiere llamarse Loreta y que se autopercibe mujer. Le han puesto ustedes en un módulo especial a la espera de que sea más femenino para trasladarle a la cárcel de mujeres, a que evolucione el fenotipo. Esto es verdad y ustedes no pueden negarlo. ¿Qué están esperando? ¿A que se maquille o están ustedes esperando a que pasen las elecciones?
So he did ask the question, what is a woman for you? It is clear for me. And then she didn't reply and said, what is a woman, Mr. Abascal? I said, I ask you. No, I'm asking you. Well, this is a stalemate. That wasn't translated correctly. So he acknowledged defeat. Even the far-right leader doesn't want to say what a woman is on Spanish television. I don't think he wants, maybe he's afraid of the trans lobby as well. So this is very odd. Probably 90% of the population didn't know what was about, because why they were asking what a woman is. We all know what a woman is. So, but at least this was on prime television, on prime time in Spanish television at the debate. So I guess the no debate and the silencing is over. Sorry. And the general results are ambiguous. They really had a sort of tie. We don't know whether they will be able to reach any settlement, one bloc or the other. And maybe they will have to repeat the elections because they were not clear. The Spanish system is not as in other countries, as in France, where you cannot have this tie that we had. So we don't know. And the options are right and far right. The far right, they think there's such thing as male violence against women doesn't exist, and the Spanish men are discriminated against because of our equalities legislation. That's one block. And the other block is the left and the woke left, which they do not think that such a thing as a woman exists. And they want to enhance the woke legislation that was created in the previous 4 years. So those are the two choices we are facing now in Spain. So what have we been doing about this? Last time I was here, I told you that we had attended, we had participated in a conference organized by the Conservatives at the Congress. That was December 2022. So we did the same February 3rd, 2023 at the Senate. There were different panels. I have included here a snapshot. You cannot see her face, but that was Fiona Macarena from Fair Play for Women, who was participating via Zoom. And here next to me, this is Miriam Cates, Tory MP, who flew over to Madrid specifically for this event at the Senate. Also, Lucy Hunter Blackburn from Murray Blackburn Mackenzie participated via Zoom, and then of course other feminists. It was a brilliant event. It's uploaded to the YouTube channel of Confluencia Movimiento Feminista. So if any of you speak Spanish and would like to watch it, it was very interesting, covering sports, criminology, health, many education, many issues. I was very lucky to be invited to a national television program. So that was February, and it was the first time there was a program devoted for to the trans law, and many people started to find out what was going on because of this. And as I said, that was February. The director and conductor of the program is completely different, but we could say that he's the Spanish Joe Rogan. He's the guy that's not afraid of touching weird topics, very complicated topics, or as I said, even esoteric ones sometimes. So that's the type of journalist that doesn't hide from this topic. The others are not, they don't want to touch it, even with a 10 feet pole. And my very dear friend, Silvia Carrasco, got invited to the same program a month later in order to discuss the consequences of the law. This was the same program where the guy with a beard that I showed you at the beginning was explaining why he had changed. Of course, and on camera, he said that that was because he felt like a woman, but happily, Silvia was there also to call him out, and it was, of course, she was great as usual. And the Feminist Party had an online event about what are we going to do now that we have the trans law is passed, and different organizations, the FENCO, which is the organization of the teachers that are fighting this in schools, and other feminists from all over Spain participated. So we are organizing and getting together. This is also a good friend, Sonia Gomez, a spokeswoman for Confluencia Movimiento Feminista. You know that this is like a joint effort, like we call it a platform, because 70 different organizations belong to Confluencia. She also was invited after the regional elections to talk about the campaign we had been running for spoiled ballot and how disappointed women were with the so-called feminist government that we had. And very good news as well. It was the third edition of the book that was presented here as well in Feminist Question Time last January by Silvia. It's Co-Education Kidnapped, a feminist critique of the penetration of education by transgenderist ideas. The 4 authors are members of the FENCO, as I said, this organization of teachers, and Silvia Carrasco is one of the authors and coordinator of the book. It is very well, it's recommended for those of you who speaks or at least can read in Spanish. And 4 weeks ago, we had a gathering in Madrid by a new feminist party called Feminist to Congress. And we were there for a whole day with feminists from all over Spain. It was also live streamed on YouTube. And we're talking about many things, abolition of prostitution, pornography, surrogacy. There were women with disabilities. And of course, there was a panel for discussing the issue of sex and gender. And it was a very good and motivating event. So what's next after this? We have an ongoing campaign. We are calling for people to support our Repeal the Trans Law campaign. And we have aimed this campaign for Spanish citizens because we wanted to have a legal effect. We're going to hand over the signatures to the government that comes out of these elections, and also we will deliver the signatures to the Congress. And also, this is yesterday. Yesterday, Confluencia wrote to all the leaders of the political parties that have run for office in this last recent elections, and have stated that we are very disappointed with the woke policies, and that we want a feminist to run the ministry, and that we demand the abolition of prostitution and many other feminist demands, and we ask also to have meetings with them. We'll see how it goes. We have now summer ahead of us, but probably we will know more in September. So far, this is it. This is the situation. But as I said at the beginning, we keep on fighting and we won't submit. So thank you very much.